All right. Welcome back to Homeschool, episode 36, the podcast where Andrew Rivers and I do about 10 minutes of monologue jokes and then talk about our lives and what's going on in our lives, comedy and what's going on in the world. So basically just comedy and what's going on in the world because our lives have nothing going on. We have a guest every week and they laugh or don't laugh or talk shit, whatever they do. This week, you almost got hit in the face by Chuck Liddell. It's Brandon Lewin, by the way. Brandon Lewin, everybody.
Thank you.
Once got hit in the face almost by Chuck Liddell. And after dodging that brain damage, that would have killed you, I think. I don't think it would have damaged your brain.
Yeah.
Also CEO and founder of Big Laugh Comedy, the Austin-based, is that fair to say? Austin-based comedy production company. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thanks, fellas. Two of my favorite people from Tacoma. So, I'm glad you guys.
I'd rather be known from Tacoma. Yeah, that's Tacoma. I'll take that. It's bad when Tacoma's better than the city that you're actually from.
Where are you from? Seattle?
We're both right there in Tacoma, basically. I'm a little bit north. Yeah. What do you got before we get started? What do you have coming up shows wise for Big Laugh?
Oh man, we got lots of good stuff. So we got Matt Rife this weekend. We have that every week. We got Death Squad Secret Show, which always brings out some of the best of the new locals here in Austin, meaning like Tony Hinchcliffe, Fahim Anwar. Sometimes we'll get Joe Rogan, Ron White that'll pop in. So those are always a big audience draw. And then, then we got possibly some bigger shows coming up in a couple weeks. I'm still waiting to get word. It's getting a little close, but it is what it is. And then we got Brendan Schaub is coming in for 5 shows at the end of April. And then, man, we just keep rolling. We got Daniel Rawlings in May. We got Eddie Griffin in July. We got Trevor Wallace coming down.
So no more Andrew and Cory is what I'm hearing.
No, Cory, you can come MC sometime. Yeah,
I'd love to.
You can do a guest spot if you happen to be in town. The Dope Show, April 16th at the Everett Theater.
Oh, nice.
That'll be fun. The Tacoma Comedy Club. What is it, like the 10-year anniversary show coming up? April 18th.
Doing that too.
And then opening for Mark Norman at Tacoma Comedy Club, May. Is that already May? Yeah, April 29th through May 1st. There you go.
There we go. Cool. I'm at Spokane Comedy Club, April 8th through the 11th, Kelsey Cook. And then Tacoma Comedy Club, May 13th through 15th with Chad frickin' Daniels. And a bunch of other little things here and there. Country Club, I'm doing a country club show.
Nice.
And I finagled 18 holes
Free
of
round
golf out of them.
There you go.
Yeah. And they're like, we're going to pay you too. And I was like, oh, sure. Whatever. So that's what I got coming up. Let's do the jokes. We should do the jokes. What do you say, Andrew?
Sounds good.
3-second pause first, though, because I don't know how to edit things.
Hey, welcome back to Homeschool Podcast, episode 36. Hey, March Madness is in full swing. Cory, did you fill out your bracket yet?
Yeah, it's already busted. I had Deep State in my Sweet 16. So.
Oh, wow. I've heard Jeffrey Epstein attended a lot of Sweet 16s. I didn't mean basketball. I meant like for COVID strains. Did you fill out a COVID bracket? Like South Africa is the favorite, but don't sleep on that new Brazil variant. It's going to get crazy.
Oh, I didn't. But all I know is I had Virginia going all the way, and they're already out.
Oh, yeah, your actual hoops bracket. Yeah.
No. Virginia's a girl I met on Tinder. I thought she'd go all the way based on her profile, but she was out very early.
Unmatched very soon. That's confusing because I've heard Virginia is for lovers.
Well, but not animal lovers. Have you heard? Rabbits and monkeys are about to get a lot less sexy in Virginia. They banned cosmetic testing on them.
Well, sounds like no more pad thai in Virginia either. Inside jokes, but we get it. All right, cool. Hey, fake pills are flooding the market right now. It's a real tragedy. Schools around the country are warning kids that you may think you're buying Adderall to help with a math test, but instead you're actually buying meth.
It's a meth test instead of a math test. Things have really changed. I remember when we used to drug test kids, but now we need the kids to test their drugs before they use them.
This is why we need to get rid of standardized testing and foster a more open learning environment that accounts for different learning styles of each of the drugs.
That's right. Schools, by the way, say that now you can distance only 3 feet instead of the 6 feet for COVID. I guess it's good that we're teaching them fractions, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they already learned that when they were selling dime sacks in middle school, probably. But.
Right. Well, I think the story problem goes like, hey, the governor's approval rating is going down by 25%, so he increased capacity by 25%. What time does the train get to Cleveland? They're like, train? What's a train?
Train?
Oh, I've run a
train.
I've run a train.
Oh, we ran a train on Lucy last week. Fun middle school, wherever this hypothetical place.
Cleveland, man.
Yeah, Cleveland. Yeah, I gotta get to Cleveland. Hilarious. Book me. Oh boy. How are things over in your neck of the woods? Not Cleveland, but Everett.
Well, I was actually just in Arizona for spring training.
Baseball season. Very exciting.
Got to clarify again. I was actually training my body to build up immunity to coronavirus. It's wide open down there and zero social distancing. So.
And we never talk about it on here because I'm jealous and I don't let you talk about it. But how was your other podcast? Did you find any women to interview in Arizona? And hopefully you didn't see anybody in the minor leagues while you were there.
Well, yeah, the other podcast is called Stripper Whisper, and I interview strippers, so zero minors.
That's good.
But yes,
good.
We put up videos and pictures on Instagram and Patreon. It actually gets a couple thousand downloads per episode, and maybe that's one way for us to get subscribers on our Patreon. Just put up a bunch of nude photos.
Yeah, it's not as easy as you think. Oh, yeah. I only have 2 followers on OnlyFans that I've been posting nudes for 5 months. So I think it's content, not character.
Frequency.
I don't know.
Well, and I'm subscribed to your OnlyFans. I'm one of your OnlyFans.
It's really getting sad over here. I can't understand. Why is a podcast about strippers way more popular than 2 dorky white dudes telling jokes? I can't.
Maybe Brandon has a thought. I mean, I don't think we'll ever know. It's really one of life's great mysteries.
Well, speaking of strip clubs, the strip clubs in Nashville are giving out free lifetime VIP memberships for residents who prove that they're vaccinated. Oh boy. Make sure you get vaccinated for a couple other things before you go to those strip clubs, like HPV. Oh boy.
All right. What are you trying to say? Sex workers are gross. They're dirty. They carry diseases. You've been very offensive with your jokes this last couple of weeks to underprivileged and underrepresented groups of people, Andrew.
No, I meant like everyone should get every vaccine, like HPV, chicken pox, regular flu shot.
All right. Okay. I guess that makes sense. I just get very defensive over my girls.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to get that chicken pox vaccine if you're going to be in the hen house. Oh. But it's Nashville, so remember, there's no sex in the champagne room and no teeth either. Yeehaw! All right. Tooth to tit ratio, folks. Come on.
Well, in Tennessee, there's also no champagne in the champagne room. They just have Four Loko.
Fun room.
Can I take you to the Four Loko room?
Because you're loco if you spend money on a stripper.
We haven't heard from Brandon in a bit. He's subscribing to my other podcast right now.
Yeah, he's busy. He's busy looking up my OnlyFans.
I became subscriber number 3 right now. So
thank you. Yeah. Oh, Tyler P. All right. There should be a strip club where, in these red states where like the strippers are naked, but they're only wearing a mask and you just have to pay them to take it off. Feel like that would be super popular. But for the first time since the pandemic started, liquor sales have dropped because comedy clubs are open again and Cory doesn't have to buy his own drinks anymore. So,
yeah, my relationship with whiskey is on the rocks lately.
Ooh, I get it. That's a neat joke. Yeah, I don't really drink much anymore. I'm a lightweight. 2 drinks and I'll start looking like Joe Biden, tripping on stairs, slurring my words, rubbing women's shoulders. It's bad news.
Bad news. Well, anyway, up in our in a blue state, Redmond, Washington, the new slogan is "You stay, we pay." They're offering gift certificates to customers who get a 2-night stay at a local hotel, which is kind of neat. Way better than Enumclaw, where it's "You stay, we nay." I don't
It's a
know
town. It's a local
joke.
town. A guy fucked a horse, so it's a little joke.
There you go. No. He got fucked by the horse. No,
sorry, my apology. Didn't mean to offend the horse. I sincerely apologize. Please let me keep my job. Disney on Ice returns to Florida. It's not an ice skating show. They've just moved Walt Disney's frozen corpse back to Florida. Now that COVID is over, they're going to reanimate him to say a bunch of racist stuff.
I think he already did. Why hasn't he been canceled? But hey, it looks like America's officially back.
Oh, Disney's the barometer?
Well, and the mass shootings. But like our buddy Phil Kopsensky said, it's nice that we can all gather now in groups large enough to be mass murdered again. That's
sounds like it's time to do something different with regards to gun control, don't you think?
Whoa, a little too soon to be talking about that, huh? Just happened.
Well, they happen so often. I mean, it's always too soon to talk about them. How about we talk about the 400 from 2019?
Okay. I think the problem is way too much talking, not enough thinking and praying. So I'm just gonna think about the mass shootings.
Let me know how that works. Thoughts and prayers for the massacre of this unfunny podcast this week. But here to save it is our guest, Brandon Lewin. Everybody, make some noise.
Save the pod. That's tough.
I have a
weight on your shoulders.
I have a question for you guys, though, real quick, just to go back to some of this.
6 inches. Huh?
That's why you have a podcast about strippers, right?
Now it's 3, according to the CDC. It's,
the CDC said you can stay 6 inches away.
What's the
question? Is you seriously have a podcast that you talk to strippers about?
Oh yeah. It's called Stripper Whisper. I interview them about their lives and what it's like working in the clubs and how we can all be better customers in their spaces. And
so you basically are getting what?
So if you know anybody,
I do. We know we have a good relationship with the girls down in Red Rose and Yellow Rose down here in Austin, Texas. So
I'll make.
Sounds like Cory and Andrew need a co-headline night, and then we can come tell jokes at your club too. That would be fun.
So wait, you ask them questions about their lives, so they basically are just doing the same thing they do when you pay them at strip clubs.
Yeah, I just get the info for free. Well, what I always say is it was real difficult to get the interviews in person because I had to be like, hey, I got this podcast. I do it in my hotel room. You want to come back with me? And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
How about right after your shift? Is that good for you? But there's a lot of sliding into Instagram DMs, a lot of attending strip clubs and just, sort of trying to be personal and say, hey, I'm here to pay you, but I'm also here because I do this podcast. And very early on, it became clear that I needed to like really lean into helping people be better customers and helping them normalize their job. On a podcast that hopefully was going to be popular enough that someone would go, oh, I'm not supposed to do that when I'm in a strip club. That's good to know. I didn't know that. Or I am supposed to do this. And So we really lean into that, and then
I shouldn't wear gray sweatpants. I'm so confused. I don't understand the rules here.
Wow. All right. Jeez, I would have never known that if it weren't for Cory and his podcast.
So, what are some things that you're not supposed to do at a strip club, like outside of the norm?
So I mean, if the short of it is pay. Just pay for everything you're doing, every interaction, if you're sitting at the bar. Well, I'm just watching the game. No, you're at a strip club. You're watching the strippers. You pay. You go, you tip, you pay, you pay, you pay. And then the biggest one is just learn the rules of the club and the city and follow those to a T. And really comes to their big thing is just don't touch us, Okay. And but some clubs allow a little bit of touching. But you have to start with the base level of no touching is allowed of them, and then go from there.
Until proven otherwise. Yeah, I guess.
And the vast majority
until you get a girl in the VIP and she goes, put a finger in my butthole.
When would that happen?
Not to Cory.
Is this another inside joke? Yeah.
That was going to be the name of this podcast, but
put a finger in my butthole.
So but then you can go from
jokes.
there. Yeah, inside jokes. But then you can go from there, and a lot of the vast majority of places, like the rules here that you can't touch me, but I can touch you. And I always think like that's way hot, like that's way better. I'd rather sit on my hands and have a woman touch me than me touch her elbow or touch her skin. Like it doesn't. So what it really comes down to is that men are trying to be like, it's a power play for men to touch them or spank them or whatever, and they're like, don't, what do you do? Don't. That's the vast majority. I mean, there's very specific things. So then they tell specific stories, which is you just gotta listen to the podcast, I guess. But they tell specific stories of like one time a guy asked me to do this or one. That's the way I phrase the question is, what have you been asked to do? Because then they don't have to reveal if they did it or not. They can just say, yeah, a guy asked this. And it depends on how sex positive the woman is. I mean, Salt Lake City is very different than Portland, is very different than Mexico City. I interviewed a woman in Mexico City and she had some stories, and it was pretty wild.
Didn't you have to delay that podcast because she had like a gang shooting outside of her apartment?
Yeah, she was like, "Hey, I can't make it home to be interviewed because there's a shooting right outside my house. But can we do next week?" And I was like, "I mean, if you're still alive and available, sure." But she just said it nonchalantly too. So she was quite the interview. She was a great interview, but. I gotta get that second season out. We're working on Casey McLean. He's my producer, and he's got to do a little bit of work for me, and he's doing it for free, so I'm not rushing him. He'll get it done he's gonna get it done next weekend, I think. And then, but season 1 is out, and it's great, and it's fun, and hell, let's have you ever stripped? Let's just switch this interview to
let's
have you ever
all the time. That's how I worked my way through college. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Actually, now I do comedy. Actually, so it's funny. There's a girl locally who used to be a stripper. Now she's a comedian as well. And we have quite a bit of, like I say, quite a bit of the adult entertainers that like to come through to the shows. As well, and then we have a relationship with the local strip club. So I've always been a fan of strip clubs my entire life. You gained a new subscriber, so
nice.
Just thank you for that.
Great people watching.
Amazing people watching.
So that's all. So I had a vision of someday afternoon live shows if the podcast got popular enough. So a live podcast at one of the clubs in the afternoon when it's slow and nothing's going on. I can go, hey, I can bring 40 people in. So, at fucking noon. And
they're coming for the girl, not you. Let's be honest.
Wow, yeah. But if they come for me, that'd be great. But I'm very professional, so no, none of them have done that, and not good at sex. So. But yeah, so that's a vision I have of maybe something someday. yeah. Anyway, now I'm very excited to come back to Austin. I already was. Speaking of Austin, you're killing it down there. It's like the new New York or LA of comedy or something.
Yeah,
As far as I can tell.
That's what they keep on saying, man. Joe Rogan's calling it the Mecca. Everyone's hanging on to that word of Mecca. I guess so. It's blowing up right now, and it's a fun time to be down here. It's a little bit like the Wild West too, which is always interesting. So yeah, man, it's a fun time to be in Austin for comedy. That's for sure. A lot of people are also coming here because everywhere else is pretty much closed. I mean, you talk about a red state that is pretty much wide open, but we always have it's so funny because Austin is a blue city inside of a red state. So it's always the governor and the mayor are always having a dick measuring contest. Yeah, it's quite entertaining to see how all this unfolds. Because the governor was like, oh, vaccines are starting to roll out. Let's just open this up 100% and not require masks. And the mayor was like, no, don't be a fucking idiot. Put your mask back on. And it's just always a fun. It's kind of like watching you two do your monologue in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
So are there still places that require?
That's the end of the podcast. We all measure our dicks.
I got to pull up another window here and get ready. Pull up Cory's podcast Patreon. Now, are there still places that require masks? Are you ever walking around and going to get Thai food, and then the thing says mask, and you're like, I left it 6 blocks away?
So most everywhere, even outside of the city, are still requiring masks. Because again, it hasn't disappeared, and people aren't idiots. So it's really up to the businesses because governor, but there are certain places in Texas where either it didn't spread very much or they just don't give a shit. So I'm sure they don't have that. But everywhere that I've been to, it's pretty much you have to wear a mask. Some people don't wear them, and then they don't really try to force them because they don't want to be the next viral video on the internet. So and it's not worth it. I think in some circumstances, fuck that. But I got recently tested in for rapid tests because we're constantly, doing shows and gotta be careful. And I got one the other day, and the doctor just told me what you guys said, the 3 feet distance, and also told me that hand sanitizer doesn't work at all. That you're actually not supposed to do that. It's the little pumps and the rubbing your hands is all mental, doesn't do shit for you. You have to actually wash your hands and scrub it for 60 seconds for it to actually work. But then it's also, if you don't shake someone's hand, it might be contagious, and you don't touch your mouth, you're fine, 3 feet. So it's the rules have changed, which is great because in all honesty, I mean, we came in this shit not knowing what the hell was going on. And it was too short of a period of time to really figure out what the real requirements and how things spread. So I mean, if you look at any study, it takes years to analyze all the data, and we didn't have that time. So we're just kind of pulling shit out of our asses and hoping it worked. And so, I mean, it is what it is, but it's good to see kind of some of this stuff change. And down here, it's just a little bit different. We have all sorts of people. We have people who come to the show. People wear masks the whole time. A lot of people are vaccinated too in Austin and in Texas. And then you have some people who are just oh, I'm sick of wearing these fucking masks. They suck, blah, blah, blah. I was all right. And then you ask people, always the comedians are how many people have had COVID, and half the room. So, I mean, pretty much all of Texas and Austin have had COVID. So it's okay now.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that with business. I run a monthly show, and I just can't imagine a scenario of me being let's start the show again, and then 3 people get it. So maybe at my show, maybe not, but that might be where they attribute it to for whatever reason. And then all of a sudden people are mad at me for doing a show. Do you have any paranoia about that, or are you?
Oh, all the time. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, so what we always say is we always require people wear the mask in, sit down. It's kind of like the restaurant requirements that they have. But the main thing is that if people aren't comfortable, don't come out. We don't force people. We're not sitting there over the internet holding guns to people's heads. So if they're not comfortable, they can stay home and not participate. The other thing is that, we've had, for the most part, we haven't had, I mean, knock on wood, we haven't had any comedians who come in from out of town, leave with COVID. We haven't heard of anyone complaining about catching it at one of our events. I've had a few people ask for refunds that they weren't able to make it because they got COVID, or somebody in their party got COVID, which I was like 100%. I mean, I mostly refund everybody for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, I say no refunds on my tickets, but the fact of the matter is that, like, unless you're like some asshole, and you give me some sort of excuse, whether it's bullshit or not, I'm going to give you your money back. I just think it's the right thing to do. And especially with COVID, I was like, hell yeah. I'll give you a tip too. How about $20 extra, or like a free table the next time you want to come back?
Thanks for not coming to our show while you have a disease. Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
by the way, we're keeping your money.
They're like, fuck
yeah.
I think coffin.
That's great. And I think you're right. At this point, over a year in, if you're choosing to go out, you know what you're getting into, and if you then turn around and become a Ken or a Karen or whatever, and then it's like, well, come on, what are we doing here? And I like, I mean, you said it, but I like when all the data changes for the better. I think that's awesome, but a lot of people are like, see, it's bullshit. And you're like, no, it's good when the data changes for the better. Like, that's a good thing. My brother just sent me a CDC article that if Moderna and Pfizer, the first shot is about 80% effective at keeping you from. If it was I don't know if it was the breadth of the study was big enough to trust it, but I was pretty like, that's good because I've had one and I'm getting the other one the second Saturday. And
nice.
At that point, I'm going to kind of feel like a bit of a free for all. I'm already kind of out and about, but yeah, I mean, I think that's great. It sounds like you're doing a great job, and man, it's really growing. So congratulations on all that shit, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. It's been fun. It's just comedy is a necessity. I mean, in my eyes, I know you guys didn't have comedy for a while up there, and y'all were hurting pretty bad. And it's just like both ends, right? Like the comedians suffer from not being able to tell jokes until you guys craft, and then the people are sitting there and fucking sitting indoors watching a bunch of bullshit, or jerking off or whatever they're doing. I don't know if people are even jerking off, because it's kind of depressing when you're just sitting at home. So unless you're just like popping.
Well, depression and masturbating usually go hand in hand. So
I literally watch a bullshit and jerk off. So it's been that bad. That's cool. So yeah, we're kind of out and about. Andrew had I just went on a little vacation, did a guest spot, but Andrew actually, he had a college kid in the Dakotas this week.
Oh yeah, South Dakota. It was real fucked up because it was like a Wednesday night, so it was like midweek, and not a lot of direct flights into South Dakota. So, I mean, it's just a brutal travel. So I'd take like an overnight flight, and I had to stop in Chicago. So I'm like flying past the city I'm supposed to go to, and then flying back 2 hours, and I'm just like pissed off. And so I get 3 hours of plane sleep, and then do this. I bring I had like the bomb squad called on me at the airport because I bring a bag of like food. It's just like powdered food. And because it's such a impossible, because also with COVID, I don't know if you've done a lot of traveling, but like airport restaurants are basically all closed. So you can only buy like Cheez-Its and Diet Coke. And so you're not getting like a decent meal for, 8 hours basically if you're traveling. So I always bring this big thing, but I always put it in my check bags. And then, but this was just a 24-hour trip. So I was like, I'll just throw it in a carry-on. I'll only bring a carry-on. But then I get to the airport at like, 11:30 for my flight. And it triggers an alarm, and they have to make 17 phone calls. And like, it takes like 30 minutes for this guy to come downstairs, and he looks all disheveled. I'm like, that's what a bomb guy would look like, And he's got like a
bomber
lab
or
kit.
a bomb guy.
Yeah.
He looks like a bomber.
Closely. He's gonna put more explosive stuff in it, so it actually goes off.
The only difference between a bomber and a bomb squad tester is like motivation or something.
Yeah. So they
but-
spend, they open up the bag and they have to the guy goes, "Hey, I'm going to sample some of this. Is that okay?" I go, "Have a blast." And then I just left it in South Dakota because I was like, if it takes 30 minutes at SeaTac, I don't know if South Dakota Regional Airport's going to have a bomb guy on call,
Wait,
You're gonna have to fly a guy in.
They sampled that for you?
Yeah, so they open it up
food?
and they take a little thing and they scoop it into something. Oh, did you disappear? Did you leave? Oh, he left the Zoom in the middle. All right.
Yeah, I asked the question and I
The
left.
jokes were fine, but Andrew's story was just trash. I had to.
Boring. Can we get back to the strippers? So yeah, just a whole mess
Test
of
kit
it, but,
and shake it up
yeah.
or something, and
yeah, if it turns blue, it's fine and whatever. Who knows? But
I thought they were dipping their finger in to taste the food.
he's like, "This is a good shit." He's got a knife and he's.
I had a one time where they just kept 2 times over the course of maybe a month. They kept testing bomb residue
or whatever
on my backpack, and I was like, are they like, I don't know, were you in the military? And I was like, I'm a substitute teacher. I don't, a comedian. I'm not.
School gunpowder, school shootings. Yeah.
I wouldn't even know. And they're like, well, let's see. And they just couldn't figure out what it was. And it was mostly happening on these magnets I would give away, or it seemed like that's where. So I was like, I don't know. I buy magnets from some company, and I'm like spitballing, trying to help them. Like, maybe it's this. And they're like, "Have you been to a military base recently?" And I was like, "I have not." So I never got to the bottom of it, and it was 2 times though, which was really weird. One time I'd be like, it's just
Did you stop bringing the magnets? And
I did, because I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. So, or I put them in the
checked bags.
So yeah, I just got we already talked about it on the podcast, but I missed a flight because I was just an idiot and checked a bag. But it's becoming more and more difficult to just breeze through. For the last year you could just like boom, and now it's like the parking garage where you park your car, that's busy. So the shuttle is, we missed that shuttle. The next one's 5, and then the lines are longer, and so it's over. All the advantages of traveling are gone. So if you missed it, you missed it. But so is COVID. So hey.
Well, that's funny too. Is like I did a bar gig up in Monroe the other day, and it was only supposed to be 50% capacity, but I was like looking around. I was like, I don't see any empty seats. And then it was so funny because it's such a small, little bar that people would sit at their table and then they'd like, "Oh, I'm going to go to the bar and get a drink." And they'd put on a mask and they walk 5 feet, and then they go order their drink and then walk back 5 feet to where they're sitting and take their mask off. And I was kind of like, what are we doing here? I'm in a corner in this packed bar or whatever, but I was like, I don't think you can open up 25% and be like, all right, everybody just chill out,
I think you can do, that's what I think. I think the lower the percentage you can, but once you get to 50, it's like you can't even tell. They're like, well, our capacity is 200, and you're like, yeah, but 200 people can't be in here.
Right.
But it's not even the capacity. But it's not even the capacity that they're really trying to that affects.
It's like fire
COVID.
code, right?
Well, it's not even that, but the capacity. It's like the fact of the matter is you have to have the distance, right? Like whatever the CDC says the distance is.
Right.
That's really the measurement, because even if you're at 50%, but if you can't fit 50% within 6 feet or 3 feet, whatever. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So it's all kind of fucking ass back.
Yeah, I was like, what would this look like at 100%? Just people on top of each other? I don't understand.
This place is an orgy, apparently. One show I did was supposed to be at 25, and then the next month it got switched. So I said to him, I go, hey, well, I was like, could we pay a little bit more to the comedians? You're going to be able to be at 50%, which is nice. And he's like, oh, I was at 50% last time. And I was like, wow. I didn't realize that, but all right, good to know. But yeah, that's cool. I mean, I was it was interesting. I went to a water park 12-year-old boy yesterday down in Arizona, and it was just an interesting
So you were scouting minors.
experience to
Team Epstein.
future. Yeah, I'm not gonna engage in any of that.
No comment.
But like, there was like no requirement, but there were people wearing masks, but then there was outdoors, and it was a whole thing. And it's like, I'm for anything that reduces the likelihood, and also the recognition of some things are a bit silly, and what are you gonna do? But like, a water park outdoors, just so funny to like see people in masks, and then like it's falling off while they're in the water, and you're like,
you can barely keep your shorts on sometimes on those slides. At least that's what I told the cops.
We were hoping for a few. So, yeah, that's funny. We went down to one slide, and I asked if things ever fall off, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah," and the girl behind us was like, "What?"
What?
And so we went at the bottom. We waited like creeps, and she's like,
"So you're like, hey, let me help you tie this a little tighter, make it real loose."
I've always been interested by the danger of a water slide. Like, there's so much trust they put into, like, because they're like, you got to cross your ankles and put your head back and cross your arms and do this, and I'm like, they just the business of it is so. I mean, forget running a comedy show in Austin with a little bit of COVID floating around. I mean, I just own a business where people just, when they're just like, oh, you're 52 inches, well then you're going to be entirely fine. Like, they don't account for the fact that I might go like, and just, or that I can't swim, or like there's no other questions other than height. That's the only.
I just want to show a vaccine card and a swimming test card to prove that you're.
I guess I don't get I'd be paranoid nonstop as somebody. Like, I'd be calling every few hours. Like, did anybody get hurt? And maybe it's just people must just not get hurt on these water slides. Because
I want to know what happens if you don't cross your legs, though, or like you don't cross your arms.
Yeah, you gotta account for that person too. The person that when you tell them something, they're like, I got this. You're like, they're gonna. I don't know, but nobody gets hurt as far as I can tell. What made me think of it is there was this little kid who was really nervous. And we were all trying to like talk him into doing it. We're like, you're gonna be fine. This is gonna be great. You're gonna love it. And then I go, hey man, because he was so nervous. I go, hey, me and my brother, we're gonna go down, and you look down at the bottom. We'll give you the thumbs up at the bottom and let you know that it's just fine. And his dad was like, oh, thanks. So we did it, and I got to the bottom. And I was like, looking at my brother, like, I don't think I can thumbs up this. Like, that was terrifying.
Maybe.
And it seemed pretty dangerous, and so I just was like, and then I was like, oh, now I'm responsible for this kid. He's gonna get to the bottom and be like, fuck you and fuck you.
He won't be able to do that. He's gonna be missing. He's gonna have a concussion, so he'll have to. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission reported that 4,200 people had to visit the hospital in 2015 for injuries sustained at public water parks. These ranged from scrapes and concussions to broken limbs and spinal injuries.
Spinal, oh boy. They were running. That's the problem. It says no running everywhere.
Don't dive. Don't Everyone knows you don't dive in the shallow end.
Don't run. But we will send you 80 miles per hour down this tube. But don't run.
A 10-year-old died in Kansas while riding a water. His raft went airborne during the ascent of a second hill. It impacted a metal support of the netting and decapitated him. So, I mean,
it's shit. So
that's the fucking extreme, man. Jesus. I went to a water park during COVID. We went to indoor water park. And talk about, like, I was very nervous because they're like, it's like it was the middle
peeing in the water and fucking
breathing. There's no
mask big COVID and HPV, so that's exciting.
There's like fucking piss water everywhere. But my son was the same type of way, man. He's younger. He's like 7 years old, but he's not like tall enough to ride most of the rides. But I wasn't even paying attention that you had to be a certain height. I was throwing him on there, and he was fine for the most part. I mean, there's one time he almost flew off. Luckily, he held on. We were on this big
raft. Got decapitated once.
I feel like I shouldn't tell this story.
But he was 56 inches, so he went over the pole instead of under it, so it worked out.
Field goal. It was good. They should, that should be a ride. You know, when you throw off a younger kid and goes through like the field goal post. Yeah, man. But that shit like is wild. And I try to, like you were talking about trying to make the kid feel better about it. I try to get my daughter, who's older, and she just doesn't have that. My son's fearless. My daughter is a scary cat. And so like she tries to get on there and she's like sitting at the top, like boohoo crying. And as a parent, I'm just like, whatever, go back down. And everyone's trying to like rally her. And I was like, you know what? Probably not to. Like, she probably should go down there because like the nightmares and all the shit you got to deal with afterwards is not a fun experience as a parent. Because that's when like they don't tell you about that shit when you get someone pregnant. They don't say, hey, you know what? You're gonna have to wake up in the middle of the night, even when they're 10 years old, because they're scared of falling off a ride or because you show them a scary movie or something along those lines. You know, there's not those disclaimers that come out. But yeah, man,
they just tell you not to shake them, and then
exactly.
Good luck.
Shake them.
All right, but in 10 years, can I throw them down a tube? yeah, you can do that. That's fine.
What's what if the ride goes like this? Is that fine? Can we shake him on a ride? Is that?
There was what we did. We played laser tag, and there was one guy carrying around his baby running.
Oh my god! He's blocking his.
I did. I was like, he's blocking your thing, man. It's bullshit. Also, I think you're shaking your baby.
He's trying to learn how to use guns at an early age. Just pull the trigger.
Nah, right? Yeah. Well, just be safe in school. Did you get any? So you're getting some famous people to perform, and it sounds like you're getting some strippers to adult work. Are you getting like famous people to attend?
Yeah. So shows?
Anybody from The Bachelor that's.
So we actually we had a scenario where Elon Musk was spotted in the club. And Elon, as you guys know, moved down to Austin, Texas. And so we actually, it was actually, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had a Death Squad show. And so Rogan was in the house, and everyone knows that Rogan's friends with Elon. And so everyone was like, oh my God, Elon's in the house. And I saw this one comedian that's helping us out, like as an associate producer. He's like, spotted me. He's like, go around the bar. Walk around the bar. He's like, hey, dude. He's like, Elon is in the green room. I was like, Elon who? He's like, Elon Musk. I was like, you
oh, that Elon. There's so many Elons.
It's funny. I have a friend who's named Elon. It's not spelled the same way.
You never hear it without the last name.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh shit. So I go booking it down the room, and I'm going to Nick, who's the owner of Vulcan, and Sarah, who also helps us out with the shows. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm like, Elon Musk is in the green room. And Nick gives me this kind of like look, like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he goes, that's a comedian. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. He's like, dude, that's the guy who's playing this weekend. It was Steve Byrne. So the guy thought Steve Byrne was Elon
in his
fucking
suit.
Musk. Yes. Oh, well, he wasn't even wearing a suit. He was wearing like a button-up, like long, like what looked like a raincoat. And so
funny.
And so he wasn't wearing his typical outfit. So like, I think that's what kind of threw people off. But then Steve came down because he was about to go up and do a set. And I was like, hey, dude, I'm like, they actually, one of the guys thought you were Elon Musk. And so he got on stage and he did 10 minutes of that shit.
Funny. And you should have introduced him. Elon Musk, everybody. Welcome Elon to the show.
I think that's actually how I asked the guy to introduce him, and I'm pretty sure he did do that. And he got up there and he was like, "Yeah, I'm the fat, bloated, half Asian Elon Musk," and so it was fucking hilarious. So that same show, Steve, there's a local comedian. Well, he's not local, but he's a regular on the Kill Tony podcast. His name is Michael Lahair, and he has ALS, and so he's in a wheelchair. And he does like 15 minutes. It's solid. Motherfucker kills it every time he goes up there. and he went up earlier in the night. Steve didn't see him up there, and Michael was sitting next to this chick in front of the stage and just like, hanging out. And Steve starts talking to him, and then he starts asking him questions like, hey man, how fast does that thing go? And he was like 10 miles an hour or some shit like that. He's like, prove it. And so sure enough, he comes like speeding around the corner and then books it down the back path of the fucking comedy club. And it was the fucking funniest thing I've seen in a long time. And everyone's just cheering and going fucking crazy. And you have the, fat, half Asian Elon Musk on stage telling this comedian,
I created that device. I made that. I'm controlling it right now with this app on my phone, actually. That's wild. That's really funny. But that guy, I think I've seen that guy on Kill Tony. That's funny. And you've met our buddy from the Seattle area. A couple of our buddies from the Seattle area moved down there. Rice Man. I don't know if Rice Man's done anything with you.
Not yet, no.
And
Fahim?
Well, Fahim is
he's from Seattle though, right?
He's moved down there.
Yeah, he moved down here. He's been down here for a few months now. And we've done a few shows with him. Dude is fucking hilarious. And one thing I love about that guy is he, like, even though he has very similar jokes, his set is never the same. And it's like every time he's got new shit that he's working on or he's riffing off of something else. It's just incredible to watch.
He's constantly doing it. He's very like smart. It's like he's
extremely.
Constantly like he's always got his like laptop with him, and he's always like making a chart of like what joke he did on what date and how it did with the like number system and shit. Like, jeez.
Well, he was an engineer before he became a comedian, and so like that's just how his brain works. It's incredible.
I used to do that at the beginning, but it was like I wasn't good, so it was like B+, and everyone was like, "That was not a B+." So it's not good. Terry Taylor used to make fun of me. He'd be like, "What grade you give yourself on that?" I'm like, "God damn it! I know it's about to happen." Yeah.
Why do they stop at F?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I was thinking like an open. He's more than an open micer, but Adam Lucky, I don't know. I think he's come through and done a couple sets.
Yeah, Adam is killing it down here. I mean, as far as like coming down and being kind of newer into the scene, he's been crushing. Right. He's got his own show now down here that he does on a weekly basis, and then
I saw that.
He did Kill Tony a couple times, and the first time he did it, he crushed it. So much so that's why Red Band put him on the Secret Show. Yeah. And then he's been back a few times. He does great. Like he's got dark material. I don't know what it is about you guys, but some of you guys have some dark material from the Pacific Northwest, man.
How we keep it from killing ourselves,
We make audience members kill themselves instead. Works out better.
But Adam's great, man. I love that guy. He's awesome, hustling his ass off, funny dude. And then another guy from your area, from the Seattle area, Adam Ray, bigger guy. He was just down here. He's spending some time in Texas as well, just to be able to like work some shit out. But he did this weekend and he crushed. But he's so interesting because he does such great crowd work, and like he did like 15 minutes the other day on some guy, and he was asking him about reality shows, and the guy said he liked Tiger King, and somehow that conversation led into another audience member who actually owned a Bengal, and it was the most fucking hilarious interaction because obviously it wasn't planned, but it couldn't have been like the better like mixture of people in the same area. It was fucking hilarious, man. And he's got a new podcast coming out actually. So I'm going to shamelessly plug his podcast, but he's doing a podcast with Chuck Liddell. He actually has one coming out, and I'm pretty sure there's news about that. But I hope I'm not
speaking about a guy who gets topless a lot. Strippers. All right.
I'll interview
him. For sure. So Chuck came by on Friday night, and so it's always funny because when you get like celebrities and people who are well known, they want to come through the back door. Obviously, they don't want to be seen. They don't want to go through the front door. So I
mean, they've had sex in the vagina so many times that they need a different way to
need something a little tighter, dirtier.
Yeah.
That's why they escorted me in the back, and then they were like, "No, we're gonna bring you around to the front because
you haven't earned that status yet."
No, we need more people to see that there is something going on here because it's
I remember we're doing that. So Chuck comes in, and I go back in the back room to go get him, and he's sitting in the back, and he's got like 6 people. One of the guys who's got this other podcast locally was bringing him by. So I'm introducing myself to everybody, and there out from the like corner comes Chuck Liddell. Right? You know who the fuck Chuck Liddell is, whether he's wearing a mask or not, but he happened to be wearing a mask, and it was a Green Bay Packers mask. And the only thing I could think of at the time was like, "Oh, hey, Chuck, what's going on?" I'm like, and I'm from Chicago. So I say, "Go Bears." And Chuck just looks at me like with a dead straight face, puts his head down like this, and then pretends to punch me in the fucking face. I didn't flinch. I just want to go on record and say that. I did not flinch, but he also went really slow. So if he would have went like full speed, yeah, that too. But I was like, I literally like threw my hands up, because I was so excited that Chuck Liddell like pretended to punch me in the face. I was kind of like fanboying out for a little bit, but it was.
Is that like his move? People go, Chuck Liddell, and he goes, "Ah, oh, I got you. I'm just kidding." Like when people come up to us in the airport, they're like, "Tell a joke," and you're like, "Ah," and they're like, "Punch me." Yeah.
He's like, "Sure." Sounds great. All right. So then that's fun. So he hung out, and then not coincidentally, but so wait, is Adam and Chuck doing a podcast together? Or is Chuck Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they started filming down here in Austin at one of the other studios in the city. And so they start filming here. And then I don't know where they're going to continue to do things, because Adam didn't move down here or anything along those lines. And I'm pretty sure Chuck doesn't live here either. So I don't know how all that logistics is going to work out, but they've been filming. They got a bunch of episodes recorded. Yeah, man. And so it'll be interesting to see how all that kind of comes about, but I'm sure it'll be great. You got Chuck. Chuck's funny though, man. Like he was talking, but he is like, he sounds like a fighter. Like he's been hit a couple times in the head,
yeah,
just a few. So
yeah, he sounds like he's been punched in the head a few times.
I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like it sounds like me when I'm drunk, but but he was like the nicest guy in the world. And he was great, man. It was cool to fucking have him come by. Everyone afterwards that stuck around a little bit got a picture with him. So super friendly.
What's funny is Floyd Mayweather reads like he's been punched in the face a lot, but he never gets punched, so it's crazy how that works out,
That's true, man. That was a good one though. You should write that one down. Go back to the film.
Put it in next week. All right.
Well, that's fun. That's great. Well, yeah, I mean, it's growing. I mean, you have inside info here, but everybody says Rogan's like full on starting a club, and it's gonna happen, and it's weeks away, or I don't know. But I don't think it's a secret. But it's
not a secret. He's talked about it all the time on his podcast. I know for a fact that he purchased the place. I just won't disclose where it is or what it's called yet. But yeah, man, he also hired the Adam from the Comedy Store. So he's going to be moving down here to help out with the club. So yeah, they're in full effect, man. Like I said, Austin's the Wild West. It's a wild time to be down here because you got like this shift, right? Like New York is always going to be New York. I think LA is going to have a harder time kind of coming back. But it's like Austin is really taking over because Rogan set the standards. But, Rogan had a reason, like outside of COVID, he had a reason to move here to a state where taxes are very friendly for businesses because the motherfucker is getting paid so much, like a ridiculous amount of money that, of course, he's going to save like $30 million by moving to a state that doesn't tax you as ridiculously as California does. So, But with him shifting down here, that's really changed everything, and he's brought in a ton of people, and it's only growing. Like Tom Segura is moving down here as well. I've heard a number of other bigger names are really contemplating about moving down here as well. Tim Dillon officially moved down here. They're flocking, and that's why Rogan's going to essentially create the Comedy Store of Austin, and he's going to have a room that people can work out their materials. All the big names will come through. He'll have Adam that's done a tremendous job with the Comedy Store and all the talent over there. So it's a fun time, man. But by the end of this year, like the crazy thing is that during COVID, Cap City, the only comedy place or comedy club in Austin, the only true comedy club in Austin, closed down during the pandemic. And that really just opened things up. And that's where, like, I saw other people started coming about, and that's where we kind of jumped in and took the opportunity. Now, we did it in a safe manner. I didn't want to just come back and be like, oh, let's start spreading COVID everywhere. I wanted to be somewhat responsible about it, as I kind of stated earlier. And so we found a really good mixture, our partnership with Nick and Vulcan, and they were closed for 8 months, and they were looking for new things to do. But you guys both been there, and you guys were actually, you were number 1, and then Andrew, you were number 3 as far as the headliners and shows that we had with Vulcan when we first opened up. And both of you guys did tremendous, and thank you guys so much. Well, we're definitely having you guys back. I wanted to say, you're like, oh, now you guys aren't going to have, no, we're bringing you back, but we're strategically building up so we can pack the room without having you guys have to lift a fucking finger, right? Like, so you guys can come in, get paid.
Those are my favorite comedy clubs. Just show up and tell jokes. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Now I saw like Moon Tower did some like festival thing again, and like
outdoor
is Cap City coming back at all, or did you hear anything?
Yeah, so by the end of the year, we're gonna see about 5 to 6 comedy clubs open up in Austin. Various ways. Creek in the Cave.
I saw Creek in the Cave move down there.
They moved down here, and so Rebecca and then a couple of local comedians, Marty and Colton, came together to bring down the venue to Austin. And so that's going to be great. It's going to be kind of a different vibe, I feel like, than what we normally have in Austin. And then Moon Tower was supposed to do their festival, but they really actually they're not doing it this year, not like they normally do it. They're going to do it a little bit differently, where they have like 3 weekends of a couple of headliners come through. Like Schultz is one of them, but I think the actual festival won't be happening till next year, like they normally have it. And then
I saw Tim Dillon headline a theater as like part of it or something, but maybe that was just a separate thing.
Yeah, so Moon Tower has this relationship with Paramount, which is the like typical theater that people play here, and they worked out a deal where it was just like a comedy club series, so they had a certain number of comedians come through. Tim Dillon
and it was only
one.
like 400 people in like a 1,200 seat theater, I think, right?
Yeah. And I thought that was going to be weird. I have yet to go to one of the shows just to experience it, but that's what like was going through my head, is that it's such a big place to only have a small group of people. I just don't know how you do that without like sacrificing the element of the crowd in the comedy show, like the builder,
like hot dog in a hallway, but comedy version,
That's the greatest analogy for that.
Canceled.
That was, yes.
Respect. No, women have loose vaginas. It's totally normal. I don't know.
Small penis men. Come on.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
yeah.
Step up. So it's been interesting, man. And so like we're even in the market of opening up our own comedy venue as well, just having something more full time. Vulcan has been fantastic, and we'll continue to do stuff there for the foreseeable future. It's just the demand is there, man, and Austin's a fun place to be at right now if you're in the comedy world. It's just exciting and always shit coming up and things coming about. And now Cap City is opening up. Okay, so this is where things kind of get interesting, and I don't know how much you guys want to talk about this or not, but I'll leave it up to you. I'll bring it up. You guys can tell me if you want to keep going down this rabbit hole. But
boring. Let's get back to strippers.
All right. favorite strip club moment, go.
Well,
Thumb
Chuck
in my
Liddell
ass.
walked in and punched my girlfriend in the pussy, and
used her as a puppet, and then he walked out. So comedy down here, man, it's just so Cap City is about to open up again by the end of the year, I believe, but they have actually gotten bought out by Helium, and so Helium came in and swooped in because Cap City closed down. I mean, they were at the same place for 35 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Wasn't the greatest location, was the greatest setup in the world, but it was really the only comedy club. And there was a reason, though, they were the only comedy club in Austin, even though it continued to grow year after year for a number of years, and was basically the hottest growing city in the United States for almost like 10 years straight. But it's because they run things very, I would say, unethically. When it comes to comedians, and it shows because they now have gone over to Helium, and Helium actually has come in and told comedians and agents that if they have a relationship with Helium and their clubs, they are not allowed to do shows at Vulcan in Austin. And so they have an ultimatum, essentially. It's like, either you can pick us or you can play the Vulcan. And I was just like, how is that a healthy business decision for both a comedian and also just the community in general, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, all right, I get it. There's competition, but it's a business, and life is all about competition. There's not just one of anything. Like, if you go into a larger city, there's not one pizza place. There's not one strip club. It
sort of makes sense for headliners with a draw, kind of like, but but for locals, clubs have tried to do that here with like local comics and like features and stuff. But it's like, that's how a scene grows, is by letting comics get on stage everywhere that's possible, so it makes no sense every time I hear about it.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys hear about that all the time. I've been hearing about this more and more, and not just like Helium, but other places obviously do the same thing. I mean, I've heard like certain comedy clubs banning people, and it's for doing silly shit, and it just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever to do that type of shit. Or like, certain comedy clubs won't play a certain genre of comedy. Like, some clubs won't have urban comedians come through, or certain urban comedy clubs might not have, non-urban comedians come through. And that shit just doesn't make any sense to me at all. It really doesn't. From a marketing perspective, is it better to be like focused on one thing? Yeah, but like, you have an audience that you can attract, and some of those people will carry over into other things. I mean, like, some comedians who start off urban eventually become mainstream, and that's how they really grow, And so it's like, how do you get those opportunities when you're constraining people to do one particular thing? Or
I think they should ban audiences from going to one. Like, if you go to Helium, you're not allowed at Vulcan ever again. That's just like, that'd be so stupid.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
I mean,
actually.
How dare you support this other
thing.
Yeah. So
wow.
I've been
anyway.
So when the shit happened, I was a little outspoken, right? Like, I heard about that, someone told me it. I took it as a compliment, actually, because I was like, hey, listen, they feel threatened by what we're doing. Yep. And so I was like, all right, cool. And I'm like, game on, let's do this, and I just, they're going to have to change their model, because even with 5 clubs in the same city, you're not going to be able to sustain that. Like, comedians are going to see that, and they're going to be like, fuck off, I got so many other opportunities I could get in there.
Independent shows,
all sorts of stuff, man. So it's just, it's silly. Now, part of that too came, like, I had this past week, I've had to deal with some BS. I've gotten some backlash from the local community down here, because I had a news story come out in the local ABC affiliate news channel called K-View. And they interviewed me, and then they were like, hey, we're doing a comedy. We're doing a segment on comedy. We want to get your take on the comedy scene. And I've been trying to get in the news for, I don't know how fucking long, forever, since the pandemic. But obviously during the pandemic,
they shut up that school,
Exactly. I was like, give me my
Corey's been trying to get out of the news ever since he
yeah,
you know,
without
whatever.
the hat, I was like, yeah.
The 16-year-old that was scouting the minors, you know. Corey's like, let me cover up my camera real quick.
Scout.
Scout for Chris D'Elia.
Oh boy, he's back, man. He's making a comeback.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. I feel like he
But
crossed
anyway,
that bridge.
Do?
Oh, so I did 5-minute interview, right? And they took 15 seconds of my 5-minute interview and made me sound like the biggest asshole in the world. Yeah. And I was just
I hate blacks cut. No, I meant black shirts. I hate black shirts. Why did you end it right there? Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. You know, exactly. They took something out of context and put it into their own context and made me look like an asshole. And basically it sounded like I called the comedy scene in Austin shitty, and it was only going to get shittier. Is kind of how they
brought these other people in from LA to fix it. Or
no, but I didn't even they didn't even say that. So they
in their mind, you know.
Yeah, but their story was, I said something along those lines like the comedy scene was weak before the pandemic, and then it was only going to get, and it was growing substantially, and then the guy cuts and goes, it's going to be quantity over quality for the time being, but hey, everyone needs to laugh. And not to mention Cap City is opening up by the end of the year, you know, and that was it. And I spent, in my 5-minute interview, I spent about 2 minutes talking shit about what Cap City has been doing and why, like, I don't like them. And of course I'm like, hey, why are you plugging Cap City at the end of my fucking like quote, dude? Like, what the hell? And so it was just, and then everybody from
that was Brandon with Cap City Comedy Club. So go see Cap City. You're like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
They Photoshop your hat to say Cap City. What is going on?
I felt raped, man. I did not know what happened. You know, I was like, what the fuck? And so the story came out at 10 o'clock the night that they interviewed me.
So you were drinking at David Dobrik's house, and next thing you know,
the story comes out and everyone hates me. But yeah, man, I got the story in the morning and I watched it when I woke up and I was like, oh shit, they made me look like a fucking asshole. And so I jump onto IG, go live to talk about all this and kind of explain my side and what I was talking about in the context. And at that point, the ship has sailed. You know, like, people already made up their mind. The story was out. People were spreading it like a fucking wildfire. And I sent it to one of my buddies who's a journalist as well. He's like, oh, and I was like, hey, man, this is what happened. He's like, oh, don't worry. No one will remember it in like 5 minutes. And I was like, okay. And like 48 hours later, I'm still getting hate text messages and, well, not text messages, but tweets. People were like, one guy like quoted my segment, quoted what I said, and then at the end of it said, fuck you, Brandon, on Twitter. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, I see why like celebrities don't fucking like this shit, right? Like I got like a little tiny taste, but I was like, fuck people, and they're fucking, a lot of people are idiots, you know. It's like, once they make up their mind of who you are, and there's really no going back from it in most circumstances. And so I could explain myself from here to kingdom come and it wouldn't fucking make a difference. So yeah, man, I've been trying to go on a little PR circle going around and try to save face with some of this shit. But, you know, like, in all honesty, the comedy scene was a little weak before everything, you know, and I was being honest. And
stop right there. We will release it just like that. We don't know how to edit, so you can't. You're lucky. We have no.
And this is the time you'll figure it out, though. That's what's gonna happen.
Nobody listens this far in, so. But the scene was well. I mean, you had we had the two clubs. One of them you didn't like. The other one was pretty alty, and I don't know if that plays a role. I don't know about the individual comics, if they were strong or not strong. But I mean, there's no denying that there's a stronger. I mean, you got 10 of the 100 most famous comedians in the world in your city right now. I mean, I don't know. Anyway,
I agree, man. I just like it. To me, is like, all right, was the city, the community as strong before? Definitely not. Like, and would have it prior to COVID, would Joe or these other comedians had moved to Austin from LA if COVID didn't happen? Probably not. Like, in all honesty, it's like this had to happen for this kind of shift. And so if that's the case, if they weren't going to move prior to that, then like, yes, the comedy scene was weak. Like, it wasn't going to draw people. Yeah. Where it wasn't drawing people here. It was like what this place was, it was a stepping stone. Not to say there wasn't stage time, there wasn't opportunities. There was, but it was a stepping stone. Once someone got pretty good, they went to New York or they went to LA. And that was the facts, you know, like even comedians here, strong local comedians, they still left during the pandemic and went, and even with the shift of comedians coming to LA, they still went to LA. And, you know, I've talked to a few of them through all this, and they're like, well, it's for, you know, other opportunities of writing or this or that. And I was like, that makes sense. But like, in all honesty, like, Austin doesn't provide that, and it didn't provide that beforehand, and it probably will in the near future. But right now, like, even going to LA, New York, you're probably still going to get more opportunities outside of just doing regular stand-up. But this is still becoming a really strong stand-up city. But they're like, oh, you know, like, if I wanted to do stand-up, I probably would have just stayed in Austin. I was like, first of all, no one just does just stand-up, right? Like, you want to get into writing, you want a TV show, you want a movie, you want specials. I mean, are you guys just looking for stand-up opportunities, or are you looking for other opportunities?
Well,
Anything.
yeah, I mean, I like stand up the most, but yeah, I mean, we have a podcast for that. I mean, you know,
Exactly.
At the very least, people start with something. I mean, a 2 podcast, yeah. So at the very least, you do other things, and I'd take anything. It was offered, yeah.
If I was to say, hey,
yeah,
Cory, come down here. I'm going to pay you to write for a TV show, and I'm also going to give you plenty of stand-up opportunities. You'd be like, fuck yeah, I'm coming. And like,
I'm gonna take that part
like, I gotta learn how to read.
There's the part I'm taking out of context.
Cory's like, I gotta learn how to write.
I can read better than Floyd Mayweather, but I can't write. Yeah, I mean, it's all relative too. I mean, I suppose from the perspective of Austin comedians, just devil's advocate, I mean, I suspect they're like, I mean, we had one of the best comedy clubs in the country. We have one of the best festivals in the country. I think comedians here, we suck as comedians if they hear the scene is weak, probably is what happens. They probably like heard, this guy thinks I saw, you know, I don't know, whatever. And you're like, well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I get it, but I bet you that's what they heard.
Oh no, it's for sure what they heard. I mean, because you can just hear it on what they're upset about. But like, so let me ask you a question,
Brandon.
Yeah, fuck you. That's all I need to know. But like, for you guys up in where you guys are located, and this is the scene that you guys came through. If someone new comes into the comedy scene and says, "Hey, I want to be a stand-up comedian. I'm interested in doing it," do you guys welcome them, or is it like you have to like kind of put them through the ringer or go through like a hazing stage? Like, how is the community up where you guys are at when it comes to newer people?
We're so separated from like what you would describe as the scene. We just don't even really have. But I will say,
friends of ours are getting like, you know, what would you say? Like, critical. People are mad that people are still performing, but I'm like, no one said anything to me. So like, no one. We're like kind of above it, you know.
We don't, but we don't get, but I'm sure they talk shit privately, but they just don't say anything publicly about anything we do. So on that same note, we have had people who've moved here over the years, and from what I can tell, they immediately are able to get work and time, and nobody, you know, Vanessa Dawn comes into town from Oklahoma, immediately works. Ken Hamlet moves from wherever he was before, immediately gets work, and you know, Ken, of course, and now he's in Chicago.
Our scene is pretty fair in terms of like, if you're funny, people will find stage time for you. So you know, most of the clubs are pretty, you know, fair, I think.
And that's how I feel like it should be, right? Like, but if someone was newer to stand up and they came out, they saw you guys at a club and they walked up to you and said, "Hey, you know what? You guys were hilarious. Obviously, you've been doing this for a while. I'm new to the scene. What do I need to do?" Like, how are you? I would have my
security guard punch him in the face, probably. But,
If they open with "You're hilarious," I would do anything they want. Whatever you say.
I did this college gig, and there was an improv troupe that opened for me, a bunch of local students. And so after the show, I spent an hour talking to one of the kids because he was like, "I want to get into stand-up," and I was like, "All right, yeah, I'll talk to you." I have no problem talking, and we actually teach a class too. So, one of our friends is getting super popular on TikTok. He just hit 500,000 followers. So I've even like pulled him aside and been like, all right, here's how you try to capitalize on that, set up some door deals and start, get a YouTube channel, start monetizing things. And so, we try our best to be good elderly comedy members.
Yeah.
And half of it's giving and well, half and half, but some of it's out of the kindness of our hearts, and a lot of it is like we recognize how important it is to be connected and be nice to our home club, the servers are the managers now.
Yeah, that's true.
And all 5 of our home clubs, the servers are the managers now. And
the sound guy is the booker now. It's like
fucking, so I think that's an early lesson we learned of like just be really cool to every single person.
And like 10 years ago, maybe not, Cory didn't go to that Giggles or whatever as much, but there used to be beef between 2 clubs that were doing the whole like, we'll ban you if you go to this club. And, and I always just was like, I don't think you'll do that. So I just worked everywhere and I just ignored their, and eventually they go, you
fine. Then the other club closes and they're like, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
And
everything closes down if they get shitty to comics. That's just kind of what happens.
We're both headlining in the one club. So
yeah.
And but you just become undeniable is the one on one hand, and on the other hand is also just be, Louis Anderson was like, be more professional than they expected you to be funnier than they expected you to be, and be nicer than they expected you to be. And that'll transcend all sorts of shit that you might deal with. And so I'm just like, I want people to do well. And then again, we're disconnected from the scene per se. We just aren't in it really. We're just sort of we kind of just somehow
well, it's also because we like, even if we go to open mic, it's not like, we're not waiting an hour to put our name on the list. We kind of show up and they go, oh yeah, come do 10 minutes. And then and then I fucking bounce,
this next comedian, we're so lucky. And I'm like, no.
No, please don't do that.
Don't say that. But I don't know what it's like in Austin in that respect, but anything you can do, it sounds like, to be like more welcoming and a part of what you're doing these big shows, but also doing smaller shows would be valuable probably to you in your business, because that's where you get all these great openers if you're doing some like local showcases and stuff like that. If they're gonna allow you to do it after they hate you.
I don't know, man. I think they're like, they fucking have voodoo dolls made of me now, and they're like poking me. But but that's my point of asking that question though, is just to come back, because the thing was that the other thing I mentioned when I was talking about that people were really hanging on with, especially in the local scene here, is that I said I didn't feel welcomed by the community when I started doing stand-up, and because of that, I started doing my own thing. And then even when I was doing my own thing and it was becoming successful, people, it started to shift. And like, even now it shifts, it's funny because Ken told me, I talked to Ken about this, right? Ken Hamlin, you brought up his name, mutual friend of ours. And I asked him about this stuff. He's like, dude, just wait. See, like these people are going to forget exactly what you said as soon as you offer them some fucking stage time. Like, that's all that's going to happen. And they're just upset because what happened with Austin is that there was like the community was split in half. There was the people who kind of came up, the people who were already running the scene, the bigger comedians, more established, they were running the scene. They were the gatekeepers here, but most of those people went and stopped doing comedy as soon as COVID hit. And they have yet to come out still. They're waiting to get their vaccines and all that stuff. And that's respectable, right? Like, okay. But comedy was still going on in Austin and people still wanted to see it. And so you had some newer people who either were like newer to the scene or whatever that started to do
Lose
and take
return,
advantage
bitch.
of this opportunity.
That's what the world is like. That's,
exactly. But
nobody owes you anything. Yeah.
That's where they get salty about this shit, though.
Right.
It's just like they're sitting, and understandably, yeah, I would be kind of salty too if I was sitting on my fucking hands not doing anything because I thought it was the right thing to do, which is perfectly fine. But then someone came in and swooped up and took all my fucking mojo. I'd be kind of pissed as well. And so that's where this is where things are going to get interesting over the next few months, because more and more of these comedians are coming out, more and more stages are opening up, which is fantastic. Which means I believe more and more people will be going out seeing other types of comedy. And so we'll see how this transpires. But I mean, I've always come from a place of love from the get-go, but at the same time, I like to speak how I see things, right? Like, and if I see something that's weak, and I thought the Austin comedy community wasn't really a community in the first place. Like, when you describe a community, you talk about people who are welcoming, willing to help each other out. And that's not how it was prior to COVID. Like, if I was doing it and no one fucking, they shunned me out, they pushed me down the list, they did all sorts of shit. And then when I started to build up my own stuff, that's when they turned around, and rightfully so. Like, I was never, like, trust me, I was not a good stand-up comedian. And I learned that pretty quickly. So I found my path, right? Like, I was like, I found my lane and I stayed in that motherfucker. And I was perfectly fine doing that because, I enjoy the business side. I know that comedians don't, most comedians aren't business savvy. They don't want to do that. That's why agents have a job. And that's why the managers have a job as well. And so that's where I found my path, was down that road. But people are just mad because I said they're not welcoming. They weren't welcoming. It wasn't an extremely strong scene. People weren't staying here just for stand-up. They were leaving. They were leaving to go find other opportunities. And so now it's shifted and we're in a great place. And I don't really think anyone should be mad. They should be happy. But that's the thing, is that the Austin people are at least the comedians, there's like half of those people that are like very like, this is my art. This is all I want to do. I never want to be like big and famous, or I don't want to sell out. And then the other ones are just like, then there's the typical ones that want to grow and be really successful. And then you have a ton of people who are moving down here right now that are kind of riding the Joe Rogan coattail, like they come here because Joe moved here and all that other shit. And maybe we'll see him out, or maybe I can catch some of his sweat as he's like doing a set or something. Like, there's fanboys and girls out there. Yeah, exactly. That's true, man. Yes. But yeah, man. And, so Joe's funny. Like, the first time I recognized this, Joe's been in the club like probably like 6 or 7 times, maybe even more at this point. But he just said it the last couple times he was out, he called Vulcan, it's his adopted home, and their adopted home, him and all of his friends. And I was like, oh man, that's fucking awesome. Like, it's pretty cool. But like, Joe is so funny. He walks in there now, rightfully so. He's worth a lot of money right now. He's got security guards that follow him around. They all kind of like fit the same body type, where they're a little bit shorter and stockier. But when he comes in the club, you could tell it's Joe, but he looks like a fucking fighter about to go to the ring. Like, he's like down low, just like walks through very aggressively. And you're like, and unless he knows you pretty well, he's like, just keeps his head down and rushes through. And it's so fucking funny to me, man. But he kills it every single time. And it's great to have people like him. But that's the thing, is like, Joe's a little bit more standoffish, but like Ron White has been in, and not that he's standoffish, he's just selective about who he talks to, but he still talks to the younger comedians. He gives back, he gives pointers. Ron White's the same way. Like, we have younger comedians that work at the club with us to help us out with the show, and they'll be in the green room or kind of in passing, and they might see Ron and they just sit there and listen. And he'll tell stories and provide like advice. And having those guys around, and even like Tony Hinchcliffe, like, he's around the club quite a bit, and you'll see him talking to younger guys, giving them pointers, talk about comedy. And it's great, man. Like, that's the thing. When I set out to do what we're doing with Big Laugh Comedy, that's something I wanted to provide, as an environment that everybody on different levels could come together and help each other out, like a true blown community. Like, that's what a community is that, like, I would use this as an example. When we moved from Chicago, I moved from Chicago about 6 years ago. We moved, my wife and I, we had 2 kids. We found out that I have super sperm and got my wife pregnant on our way down to Austin. And so we were moving away from our support system. That was all my family.
Fucking as you were driving, or what?
Yeah. You know, it was one of those unplanned.
You gotta stay 6 feet away, you know.
It's only 3 for me. I don't need that much room.
Yeah.
We are. So when we came down here, we didn't have any. We had 2 friends that lived here, but didn't have any family. We met some friends through like kid stuff, and but we didn't know them very long. And then when my wife had our last child, Harper, we had for weeks straight, we didn't fucking have to cook a meal. Like people put together a meal train. I've never even heard of this in my life since I moved down to Texas. And people were just dropping food off, people that we barely even fucking knew, asking us if we needed any help. They were willing to take our, 2 older ones. Thankfully, they gave them back. And so like, and so it was great to see that it's part of a community, right? That's how I would define a community, is that helping each other out, whether you know them or not, and just giving back. And that's not how things were or still really are. I mean, if you look at it, like they're getting mad at me because I made a fucking point that you guys weren't doing something that in the essence of the word should be done. And so they weren't treating people like that. And you know what though? I can't tell you how many people I've had tell me, obviously behind the scenes, tell me how much they agree with me on what I said about everything between the community and like Cap City and like clubs and how they're run. And I've gotten so much support. Obviously, a lot of people are, kind of afraid to speak up, but I just, they're like, hey man, I wish I could have said that, but like, I totally agree with you, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes people just have to be that person that, jumps in the line of fire and takes the heat for it, man. And that's kind of where I'm at. But like, it had to be said because I think now we'll be able to grow better. Like there's the woman, Rebecca, she said this to somebody else who told me about it. So I could be mistaken, and I doubt she'll see this podcast, but she said something along those lines where as much as I love you guys, I don't know. But she said something along the lines of, "Oh man, this."
We stopped recording 20 minutes ago, so it's fine. Say whatever you want.
Your story sucks, so we just stopped. But
we're interested, yeah.
Yeah, she said, I don't care if you were or aren't, I'll just keep talking anyway. But she said, what did she say? Oh, she said, oh, this set our community back like months, like something like this whole news article and what Brandon said set us back months. And I was like, did it really set us back months, or is it going to lead us in a place where we can, hopefully some of these people can reflect on maybe what they were doing prior to all this and become better, right? Like sometimes just the truth has to be said and it hurts, but some people need to hear it. And for it to, people got to speak up. It's like, we've seen this stuff happen throughout our society, especially now with COVID in this last year of 2020. And we saw this from a social justice perspective. I mean, people had to speak up. Like it was enough, right? And like someone had to say something and things had to happen and things have to change, but things don't change if you don't talk about them. And, also things don't change if you don't talk about it in a civil manner, because people get mad and they're like, fuck you, Brandon. It's like, all right, well, how are we supposed to accomplish anything now? So my hope is that people will see this or hear what I've been saying.
I think you should storm the Capitol. I think that really gets people to listen to your point.
Yes, that's a great idea. I'm going to storm the Texas Capitol here in Austin.
You're in the city, yeah.
So yeah, man. Anyway, I didn't want to get like too serious for you guys. I know this is more of a comedy podcast, but yeah, it's just interesting. It's mama fucking drama. I don't like it. It's a bunch of BS, but sometimes again, it's one of those things that have to be said or have to be done, and hopefully we'll see some change from it. So,
well, if people aren't even, I'm not saying you have to be doing stand-up right now to be a real comedian, but if you're not writing, if you're not doing online show, if you're not doing podcast, if you're not doing something this last year, I don't know if I buy that you're really stand-up. So.
Good point.
I mean, so, but maybe those people are doing a bunch of stuff and they just don't want to do live shows, and that's totally understandable. But it sounds like it's some people who have just been kind of waiting and not doing anything, hoping that they'd get good to go right back to the way things were. And it's like, well, you don't even have the club are gone. You can't. You're not just gonna hop right back in and be where you were at before if you haven't done anything in a year. So
No.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully the people that are working their asses off are on your side and team, and you're gonna give them opportunities, and so it'll work out. But anyway, yeah, maybe we should move to. You've convinced us. We're moving to Austin.
Let's do it. All right.
It's
I got stage
awesome.
time for you guys.
I love it. Well, it's great talking to you. Andrew is Andrew J. Rivers on all of the things. What should folks follow? Probably Big Laugh, huh?
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at Big Laugh Comedy Network. And then we're on all the other social medias, but that's probably the best one just to follow us on. We got all the good shit on there. And we're doing stuff not just in Austin, but in San Antonio. And then we'll be doing something in San Marcos in the summer as well. And we'll probably be hitting up the other bigger cities. So we'll definitely have to have you guys come back out and play some time at the end of the year. So love to have you guys. I loved you guys. You guys were fucking fantastic. You talk about like pros. You guys were both super fucking professional coming through. And it was fantastic to see that, you guys kind of popped my cherry and you were very gentle. So I appreciate it.
All right. That's
fun. Yeah.
It was like, wait a minute.
Last February, I did like a self-produced tour. And so I did about like 100 seats in Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas, but I couldn't find a show in Austin. And now you've got this cool ass venue. So, we'll definitely plan our next tour through there.
For sure, man. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. I'm Cory Michaelis, comedy on all the things. This was Homeschool Podcast. Thanks, and listen in next week too. Bye.